The recording studio, usually filled with the buzz of collaboration, was now fraught with tension. Snoop Dogg stood near the mixing console, arms folded, his trademark calm replaced by defiant determination. In front of him, a famous producer was pointing his finger at a printed copy of Snoop's lyrics. "This is not going to work," the producer shouted. "We cannot allow this kind of message. The sponsors will pull out, the stations won't air it. You have to change the letters." Snoop tilted his head slightly, his eyes narrowed. "You mean I have to shut up about the truth?" he replied, his voice cutting across the room. "This is not about the truth," the producer countered, hitting the table with the palm of his hand. "It's about the business, and you're screwing up the formula." The team in the studio watched in stunned silence as the two titans collided. Snoop leaned forward, his voice dropping to a dangerous calm. "If business means betraying my people, then maybe it's time for me to do business on my own." The room froze. This was not just a disagreement, it was the beginning of a war. The tension in the studio was palpable. The walls, which normally resounded with creativity, now seemed too close as Snoop Dogg and the producer came face to face. The producer, known for his influence on the music industry, was not used to being challenged. His voice carried a tone of authority as he tried to make his point. "Snoop, I understand," he said, softening his tone slightly but standing his ground. "Do you want to make a statement? But this song is not just for you, it's for the label, the sponsors, the charts. This song needs to be commercial." Snoop let out a short laugh, shaking his head. "Commercial," he repeated. "You think I care about doing something, surely, while my people are out there struggling. This isn't about the lists, it's about change." The producer threw up his hands in frustration. "You're losing sight of the big picture. If you alienate the stations and the brands, this song won't even reach the people you're trying to help." Snoop took a step forward, his presence imposing. "If it's real, they'll listen to it. If it is diluted, it will only be noise. I'm not here for noise." The tension in the studio hung heavy like a storm about to burst. The clash between Snoop Dogg and the producer had put the team on edge, but the consequences were just beginning. Around the recording console, crew members were exchanging awkward glances, unsure of where their loyalties should lie. Snoop stood his ground, arms folded, scanning the faces in the room. "Let me see if I understand," he said, his voice calm but full of steel. "Are you telling me that I need to moderate myself so that some executives don't feel uncomfortable?" The producer, visibly frustrated, floated his temples. "It's not about that, Snoop. It's about scope. If you alienate the general public, this song will not be broadcast, and then what is the point?" Snoop moved a little closer, his presence imposing. "The point is to tell the truth. If I start watering it down now, what message am I sending? That the truth doesn't matter." The room was silent for a moment, except for the gentle hum of the studio equipment. Finally, one of the engineers spoke hesitantly. "Snoop, I get what you're saying, man. But maybe there's a way to keep the message and still, make it more accessible." Snoop turned to him, his gaze sharp. "Accessible to whom? To the people this song is intended for. They don't need to be pardoned. Do they live it every day, or are we talking about people who don't want to listen to it because it makes them uncomfortable?" The engineer opened his mouth to answer, but quickly closed it, realizing that there were no valid arguments. The producer hit the table with the palm of his hand, breaking the silence. This isn't just about you, Snoop. There is a whole team depending on this project. The label has expectations, the sponsors have expectations, and we're all trying to make something that works for everyone." Snoop shook his head, a faint smile peeking out on his lips. "You're trying to make something that works for everyone," he said slowly. "But what works for everyone never works for the people who need it the most. Do you think I'm doing this for me? This is not about selling records. It's about starting conversations. To make people think. To get people to act." The producer threw up his hands in exasperation. "And what happens when those conversations hurt us, when the label leaves you, when the stations refuse to broadcast the song? Then we'll see who's really for the music and who's just for the business," Snoop replied calmly. The tension in the room reached its boiling point. One by one, the team members began to express their opinions. A marketing consultant chimed in, her tone cautious but firm. "Snoop, out of respect, but the producer has a point. If this song doesn't reach a wide audience, the message gets lost. Isn't that what you're trying to avoid?" Snoop nodded, acknowledging her perspective. "I understand you. But what good is a wide audience if the message is diluted? I'm not trying to give them something easy to digest. I'm trying to give them something real." Another crew member, a young producer who had always admired Snoop, finally spoke up. "I'm with you, Snoop. The industry is afraid of the truth because it shakes things up. But maybe shaking things up is exactly what we need now." Snoop offered him a nod of respect. "That's what I'm talking about. Change doesn't come from playing it safe." As the debate continued, it became clear that the room was divided. Some were on the producer's side, arguing in favor of a compromise to ensure the commercial success of the song. Others aligned themselves with Snoop, believing in the power of unfiltered truth. The producer, sensing that he was losing control of the room, leaned forward, his tone icy. "Let me be clear with you, Snoop. If you insist on releasing the song as is, the label won't back it up. That means there will be no budget, no promotion, no dissemination. He'll be alone." Snoop's response was immediate. "Then I'm alone. I've been lonely before, and I'll be lonely again if I have to. But I'm not going to back down." The meeting ended without a resolution. Snoop walked out of the studio, his steps determined, as he made his way to the parking lot. Behind him, the team lingered, their conversations mixing doubt, frustration, and admiration. When he got to his car, Snoop pulled out his phone and opened his notes app. He started jotting down ideas on how to release the song independently. His mind raced with possibilities, but one thought stood out above the others. "If the truth makes you nervous, I'm on the right track." News of the standoff spread quickly within the industry. Rumors of creative differences and a break with the label began to circulate. Fans were speculating on social media, rallying behind Snoop with messages of support. They tried to silence him, but Snoop is too real for that. This is why Snoop is a legend. He's telling the truth, no matter the cost. Meanwhile, the label issued a neutral statement, stating that they supported artistic expression, but needed to balance it with industry expectations. That evening, Snoop sat in his study at home, reflecting on the day. The producer's words echoed in her mind, but they only strengthened her determination. He opened the file containing the raw demo of the song and pressed play. As the rhythm filled the room, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. "This isn't just a song," he muttered to himself. "It's a revolution." With that, he began devising a plan to take control of the narrative, determined to prove that the truth could cut through even the densest noise. The studio parking lot was silent as Snoop sat in his car, scrolling through his phone. The headlines about his break with the label were already starting to appear, with a skeptical tone at best. Snoop let out a deep sigh and rubbed his temples. He wasn't worried about his reputation, he had been through too much to worry about that. But this was bigger than the now. In the studio, the team was still divided. The producer was pacing around, giving orders over the phone on how to handle the situation, while the younger members of the crew were whispering among themselves. "He's going to regret it," the producer muttered, shaking his head. "You can't just walk away from the machine and expect to survive." Meanwhile, Snoop was wasting no time. She dialed the number of an old friend, one of the few people in the industry who had always been authentic. "Hey, Dre," Snoop began, his voice steady but with a hint of urgency. "I'm going independent. I need to use your studio for a while." "Dr." Dre did not hesitate. "Count on it, brother. Tell me when and we'll do it." Snoop hung up and stared out the windshield for a moment, his mind full of ideas. This wasn't just about recording a song. It was about proving that art could thrive without corporate backing. "I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I also knew I wasn't alone." The next day, Snoop met with a handful of trusted collaborators. They gathered in a small, dimly lit studio, far from the bright spaces financed by the big labels. The atmosphere vibrated with a mixture of tension and excitement as Snoop laid out his vision. "This song," he began, pointing to a whiteboard full of scribbled notes, "is not just a song. It's a movement. It's about giving a voice to people who have been silenced for too long." One of the collaborators, a young beatmaker with a reputation for raw, authentic sounds, nodded enthusiastically. "I'm in," he said. "Whatever you need." Another, an experienced lyricist, leaned forward. "You know the industry is going to go all out against you for this, right?" Snoop smiled confidently. "Let them try. The truth does not need permission." Over the next few days, the team worked tirelessly. The studio became a hive of creativity, with beats created from scratch, lyrics rewritten and refined, and ideas flying back and forth like sparks. Snoop took the helm, his passion and energy driving the process. "This part here," he said, pointing to a section of the beat, "has to hit like a punch to the stomach. I want people to feel it, not just hear it." While the beat producer adjusted the sound, Snoop paced back and forth in the room, muttering lyrics to himself. "They tell us to shut up," he rapped, his voice gaining strength with every word. "But silence changes nothing. It's time to turn up the volume." The team erupted in applause. They could feel the power of what they were creating. News of Snoop's independent efforts began to spread, and not everyone was happy about it. The label, now feeling the impact of the public criticism, began taking steps to sabotage it. One night, while the team was in full session, Snoop received a call from his manager. "They're trying to block you," the manager warned. "They're calling the stations, telling them not to play your music." Snoop's jaw tensed, but he showed no fear. "Do what you have to do," he replied. "We'll find a way." The room fell silent as the weight of the situation became apparent. But Snook's unwavering determination rekindled his focus. "They can't stop the truth," he said, his voice steady. "Not if we keep going." The next day, an unexpected ally got in touch, a prominent independent artist who had faced similar battles with the industry. "I heard what you're doing," he said over the phone. "It's bold and it's real. Let me help you." His offer was simple but impactful. He would appear in the song, lending his voice and influence to amplify its reach. Snoop accepted without hesitation, knowing that his participation would bring even more attention to the project. As the song neared completion, the team focused on every detail. The lyrics were razor-sharp, the rhythm relentless, and the message undeniable. Snoop recorded his verses with a raw intensity that left everyone in the room impressed. "This is not just a song," he said after the last take. "It's a message. And they're going to hear it loud and clear." The team decided to film a simple but powerful music video to accompany the release. Shot in black and white, the video showed scenes of Snoop walking the streets, interspersed with footage of protests, working-class struggles, and moments of quiet resilience. While reviewing the footage, one of the contributors commented, "This isn't just about music anymore. This is history." Snoop nodded. "Let's make sure they remember that." The studio was filled with murmurs when Snoop Dogg's decision to part ways spread through the industry. It was a bold move, one that few artists dared to make, especially against a producer with such influence. However, when Snoop left the building that day, his steps were firm, his determination intact. In his mind, this was no longer just about the song, but about taking control of his voice, and proving that true art did not need to bow to corporate interests. When he got to his car, his phone was already saturated with messages. Texts and calls from friends, collaborators, and industry insiders flooded her inbox, some offering support, others questioning her decision. A message from a fellow artist said, "Brother, you have guts, but are you sure about this? You're taking on the whole machine." Snoop responded with a simple message. "The machine doesn't scare me." Inside the producer's office, chaos erupted. Record label executives were scrambling to contain the repercussions, their voices overlapping as they debated the situation. How could he just walk away like that? He demanded one of them. "Do you know how much we have invested in this project?" The producer, still furious, leaned back in his chair. "He's stubborn, that's for sure. But we can't let this happen. If he goes off on his own, and it works out for him, we will lose control, not only of him, but of all the artists who are watching this." The room fell silent as the weight of that statement settled in. Back at home, Snoop sat in his private studio, a space filled with mementos from his decades-long career. Platinum records adorned the walls, but his focus was not on the successes of the past, but on the future. He opened his laptop and started sketching out a plan. The label's resources might be gone, but Snoop had something much more valuable, a loyal fan base, and a network of collaborators who believed in him. "Let them play their games," he muttered to himself. "We'll do something they can't ignore." The first call Snoop made was to a trusted videographer. "I need you to help me record something raw, something real," he said. "No flashy sets, no gimmicks, just the truth." The videographer accepted immediately. No need to say more. Let's make it happen. Next, Snoop got in touch with a group of independent artists he had mentored over the years. "I'm putting together something big," he told them. "If they're ready, let's show the world what happens when we don't follow their rules." Each of them accepted, and the pieces of Snoop's independent project began to fall into place. The record label wasn't willing to give up without a fight. Within days, they started pulling their strings, calling radio stations, streaming platforms, and even locals, warning them not to support Snoop's new song. A streaming executive, sympathetic to Snoop, but wary of the label's power, called him directly. "Look, Snoop," he said, "I respect what you're doing, but they're in control. If we introduce your song, we could jeopardize our relationship with the entire label." Snoop's response was calm but firm. "I understand," he said. "But, you know what? People don't need permission to hear the truth. If they don't put it in, they'll find it somewhere else." Despite the obstacles, the news of Snoop's independent movement began to spread. Fans rallied to his cause, flooding social media with messages of support. "Snoop Dogg doesn't need a stamp, he's the stamp. The truth cannot be silenced, we support you, Snoop." Even some industry veterans weighed in, applauding his bravery. A prominent producer tweeted, "Snoop is doing what many of us wish we had the courage to do. Respect." In the weeks that followed, Snoop and his team worked tirelessly. The song, now titled Unfiltered, took on a life of its own, evolving into a powerful anthem of defiance and resilience. The lyrics were raw and relentless, addressing everything from systemic injustice to the hypocrisy of the music industry. Each verse hit harder than the last, driven by a rhythm that was both haunting and electrifying. Snoop gave everything in the song, his voice loaded with the weight of his convictions. "This is not just music," he told his team during an evening session. "This is a battle cry." When the song was finally ready, Snoop didn't trust the traditional promotion. Instead, she turned to her fans, sharing snippets of the song on social media and encouraging them to spread it by any means possible. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within hours of its release, Unfiltered became a trending topic, with fans sharing their reactions and breaking down its powerful message. One tweet summed it up perfectly. "This is the Snoop we've been waiting for, raw, real and fearless." Snoop's decision to leave the label was not only a risk, but a statement. He had regained his voice, proving that true art did not need to bow to corporate interests. As the song climbed the independent charts and became the soundtrack to grassroots movements, Snoop knew he had made the right choice. "They thought they could stop me," he said in an interview. "But the truth is, they only made me stronger." The day of the song's release was anything but ordinary. Snoop Dogg's bold decision to leave the label and create his own path had already caused an earthquake in the industry. Now, with Unfiltered about to come out, all eyes were on him. Social media was full of anticipation. Fans were sharing clips of Snoop's sneak peeks, tagging their friends, and generating buzz for the release. Memes flooded the timelines with phrases like, "Snoop is about to show the industry who's boss. They tried to silence him, he's louder now than ever." Meanwhile, in his private studio, Snoop and his team were putting the finishing touches on the release. A small group of collaborators gathered around a laptop, checking the final upload. The atmosphere was electric, a mixture of nervous energy and excitement. "This isn't just a song," Snoop reminded them, his voice calm but steady. "It's a message. And tonight, the world is going to hear it." At midnight, the song was released on independent platforms. Snoop's team pressed publish, and within seconds, Unfiltered was out in the world. The response was immediate. The song started trending within minutes, as fans and followers flooded social media with their reactions. Tweets like "This is the raunchiest song of the year," and "Snoop just changed the rules of the game," came in by the thousands. Independent radio stations began playing the song on a loop, with Jays praising its authenticity. One station tweeted, "We don't need corporate permission to reproduce the truth." Unfiltered, by Snoop Dogg, is in constant rotation. While the fans were celebrating, the industry was trying to react. Label executives were furious, with their phones ringing off the hook as journalists and whistleblowers demanded comment. "He's setting a dangerous precedent," one executive snarled during a meeting. "If artists think they can just walk away and be successful, what does that mean for us?" But for every detractor, there were voices of support. A prominent independent artist tweeted, "Snoop didn't just release a song, he lit a spark. This is what freedom means." The music video, shot in striking black and white, quickly became a cultural phenomenon. It featured powerful images, scenes of protests, community struggles, and Snoop walking the streets, with an imposing but accessible presence. One shot in particular, where Snoop was looking directly into the camera while saying the line, "If the truth makes you uncomfortable, maybe it's time to listen," became an instant meme. Fans plastered the phrase on posters, t-shirts, and social media posts. Not everyone was happy with Snoop's bold move. Some critics called the song too aggressive or divisive, while certain radio stations refused to play it. Snoop, however, was unfazed. In an interview with an independent podcast, he directly addressed the criticism. "They call it divisive because it forces them to look in the mirror. The truth is not always pretty, but it is always necessary." The comment went viral, further fueling the conversation around Unfiltered and its impact. While the industry debated the song, Snoop's core audience fully embraced it. Communities across the country adopted the song as a rallying cry, using it in protests and community campaigns. At one march, a protester held a sign that read, "Snoop speaks for us, do you hear us now?" The moment was captured by a journalist and widely shared, with the following caption: "Unfiltered, it's not just music, it's a movement." The success of Unfiltered inspired other artists to follow the same path. Within a few weeks, several high-profile musicians announced plans to release independent projects, citing Snoop as their motivation. A rising star tweeted, "Snoop showed us that we don't need permission to create. The truth always finds its way." In the midst of the maelstrom of attention, Snoop found a quiet moment to reflect. Sitting in his studio late at night, he played the song, letting the lyrics envelop him. "This is not about me," he thought. "It's about all of us, every voice that has been silenced, every story that has been ignored." Looking around the room, filled with memories of his career, he realized that this was not just another milestone. It was a turning point. Months later, Unfiltered was recognized at an independent music awards ceremony, winning praise for its impact and authenticity. When Snoop took the stage to accept the award, the audience erupted in applause. In his speech, Snoop kept it simple. "This is proof that you don't need a machine to be heard. All you need is a message worth listening to. Keep telling your truth, no matter what." The standing ovation that followed was a testament to the journey he had undertaken and the doors he had opened for others. The release of Unfiltered was more than just a song that hit the market, it was the spark that lit a fire throughout the industry and beyond. Within hours, the song became the subject of heated debates, passionate support, and, most importantly, a cry for change. As Unfiltered debunked the independent charts, it sent shockwaves through the music industry. Streaming platforms reported unprecedented figures for an independent release, while social media was flooded with posts analyzing the lyrics and the meaning of the song. Van tweet captured the feeling perfectly. "This is not just music, it's a revolution." Snoop Dogg didn't just break the mold, he completely burned it out. Fans from all walks of life shared their reactions, posting videos of themselves listening to the song, quoting its most powerful lines, and expressing gratitude for its unfiltered honesty. While many praised Unfiltered as a bold and necessary move, others were not so favorable. Industry insiders called it career suicide, while critics accused Snoop of being too provocative. Radio stations were divided. Some enthusiastically embraced the song, while others refused to play it, citing its controversial nature. Snoop addressed the criticism head-on during a live interview with a freelance journalist. They call it controversial because it makes them uncomfortable. But if the truth makes you squirm, maybe it's time to ask yourself why. The club of his statement went viral, adding more fuel to the growing conversation around the song. The power of Unfiltered extended far beyond its music. Fans turned the song into an anthem for activism, playing it at protests, demonstrations, and community gatherings. The raw, unfiltered lyrics resonated with people who felt ignored and invisible. At one protest, a group of young activists carried a huge banner that read, "We are the infiltrators. Snoop Dogg speaks for us." Images of the banner were widely circulated, with captions such as, "This is more than a song. This is a movement." Snoop's bold move did not go unnoticed by his teammates. Several high-profile artists expressed their support, sharing the song on their platforms and praising Snoop's courage. An especially influential artist tweeted, "Snoop just reminded us all what real art looks like. No filters, no fear. Respect." Another artist posted a video listening to the song, nodding while saying, "This is the energy we need in the industry. Snoop is showing us the way." Even celebrities outside the music world joined in, using their platforms to amplify the song's message. Meanwhile, the record label that once backed Snoop was in full damage control mode. Executives held frantic meetings, trying to put a favorable spin on the narrative. "We underestimated his influence," one executive admitted during a heated discussion. "He's making us look like the bad guys." But no amount of public relations effort could stop the momentum Snoop had created. Inspired by the song's message, community organizations began using Unfiltered as a tool to raise awareness about systemic issues. A Unitarian comm leader, organizing a march in his city, said in an interview, "Snoop's song gave us a voice when we felt we didn't have one. It's not just about music, it's about empowerment." The march, attended by thousands, ended with a massive crowd chanting Unfiltered, their voices echoing through the streets. The success of Unfiltered inspired other artists to follow Snoop's lead. Independent releases skyrocketed when musicians realized they didn't need big labels to make an impact. An up-and-coming artist tweeted, "Snoop proved that you can stay true to yourself and still succeed. It's time to break free from the machine." This ripple effect led to a broader shift in the industry, as more artists demanded creative control and transparency from their labels. Despite the chaos, Snoop found moments to connect with the people his music had touched. At a gathering organized by a community organization, fans shared their stories of how Unfiltered had inspired them. A young woman approached Snoop with tears in her eyes. "This song gave me the strength to speak at work," she said. "I've been quiet for too long, but not anymore." "Thank you." Snoop smiled warmly. "You did that, not me," he said. "I just gave you the rhythm to march." Months after its release, Unfiltered was honored with multiple awards, including an innovative recognition from an independent music association. During his acceptance speech, Snoop kept it simple but powerful. "This isn't just about me. It's about all of us. The ones who have been silenced, ignored, told to sit down. This is our time to stand up. Stay unfiltered." The audience erupted in applause, a standing ovation that felt like the culmination of everything the song stood for. The Unfiltered story did not end with its success. She became a model for future artists, a reminder that truth and authenticity could thrive even in a system designed to suppress them. Snoop's journey proved that taking risks, standing firm and refusing to compromise was worth it, not only for the artist, but for everyone who believed in his message. As Snoop reflected on the frantic months since the song's release, one thought remained with him. The truth does not need permission. He just needs a voice. The Unfiltered release marked the beginning of a broader movement in the music industry and beyond. Snoop's resistance to corporate norms and his commitment to the truth sparked a cultural shift. Artists began to rethink their relationships with record labels, and fans rallied around the idea that music could be more than just entertainment, it could be a catalyst for change. Independent artists credited Snoop for leading the way, and his fans proudly shared their own stories of standing up for their beliefs. At protests and community events, Unfiltered became an anthem of struggle, symbolizing the power of pure honesty and resistance. Snoop remained humble in the face of the outpouring of support, often remembering those who praised him. "This isn't just about me. It's about all of us finding the courage to keep each other real, no matter what I went through." Months after the launch, the impact of Filtered was undeniable. The song not only redefined Snoop's career, but also created a blueprint for independent success. The music industry was forced to recognize the power of authenticity, and record labels began to reevaluate how they treated their artists. Snoop's influence extended far beyond the charts. He became a sought-after speaker on panels on artistic freedom, authenticity, and the future of music. At one such event, he addressed a packed audience with his characteristically calm but commanding tone. "You don't need permission to be real. You just need the courage to do it." The applause was deafening, a testimony of the truth in his words. Unfiltered wasn't just a song, it was a statement, a movement, and a symbol of what could happen when an artist refused to commit. Snoop Dogg's journey proved that staying true to his voice, even in the face of adversity, could inspire millions and bring about lasting change. For Snoop, the success of the song was never about the awards or the numbers. It was about showing the world that the truth, however uncomfortable, was worth defending. As he reflected on the trip, Snoop summed it up in a way that only he could. "Sometimes you have to lose the machine to find yourself."